gorgeous viewers, welcome back to Alisa Del Monte. In today's video, you might see a special guest beside me because I don't believe I've ever mentioned in previous videos before, but today is the day. This is Anne. She is, I guess you could call her my...
sort of grandma.
Sort of. Well, let's say it's Loquette's grandmother. You know Loquette, yes. My sister Anya, and we had a special kind of gathering last night out of the blue, and she would like to share some things with me, and I thought we could do it in a video form. And with her permission, we can get this video started?
We can.
Perfect.
I'm going to tell you and Nisada a story that she's never heard before.
It's true.
And it's true. It's absolutely true. And if you look at me now and I say I'm going to tell a story about hitchhiking across the Sahara, you'll think, oh, that's not true. But it is. I want to take you back 50 years to Midwestern Nigeria, Benin City, and 4 people. Don, Diana, Humphrey, and me, Anne. We've been working as volunteers in Benin City, which wasn't easy because the Nigerian Civil War had been finishing and things were very troubled. But we'd finished our term as volunteers, and we thought it was boring to get on a plane and go back home to England, and so we thought we would hitchhike across the Sahara.
That was going to be my first question. Why on earth would you go hitchhiking across the Sahara?
Because we all wanted an adventure. And 50 years ago, no internet, no phone, no ready access to information. Other volunteers had done this journey before us. And we had little sheets of paper telling us where to go for lorry rides and how much to pay drivers and where the water holes are in the Sahara. I remember a map somebody had drawn of where the water was. So we set off from Benin City and the first job was to get to northern Nigeria, which was quite a long journey. And part of that was on a very, very crowded train. There were people on all the seats, there were people between the seats, there were people in the luggage racks, there were people in the aisle. It was, I've been trying to remember, it was over a day we were on the train and you could hardly move. And Don, one of the young men, was, for some of the time, was in a seat and there was a sack of flour above his head, and as the train bumped along, the flour would bump down onto his head, so he had it all over his head and shoulders. And so the train ride was memorable, but this story is about hitchhiking.
Well, I didn't think there were trains in the Sahara.
No, you're moving to the Sahara.
To the Sahara.
Because we were a long way south of the Sahara, so we had to get there.
So you were there for work?
For work. I'd been working 50 years ago. I'd been working in a school in Benin City.
That's why you got
teaching
there.
English. Yes.
You didn't purposely plan a trip.
Yes, and Don and Humphrey had been teaching, and Diana had been working in the pharmacy in the hospital. And so we got to northern Nigeria, which is nearer to the Sahara, to a big town called Kano. A huge town, city. With big mosques, because it's a Muslim area, and big houses made of mud blocks, but all ornamented with patterns in mud, very distinctive, and a huge market. The market was so big that if you were a stranger, you needed a guide. So you went to the doorway into the market, and a man or a boy would offer to look after you, and you'd give them some small money, and they would take you around, probably to the stalls that their friends were running, but at least you didn't get lost. And I remember 2 things we bought in the market. One were big sun hats, and the other were big bags of oranges. I'll come back to the oranges.
Good for hydrating yourself.
Yeah. In the instructions that the other volunteers had left us, they told us how much water to take, and that we needed sleeping bags, but also a plastic bag to go around the outside of the sleeping bag to protect it.
Because you'd be sleeping
on the sand.
On the sand.
In the cold. It's cold in the Sahara at night.
Hitchhike, a day's trip.
No, it took about a week. Yeah.
Sleeping on ice. No,
sand.
Sand everywhere.
Yeah.
For a week.
Yeah. It was good.
Wow.
But we haven't got there yet. We've got as far as Kano.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd taken some things with us from Benin City, and we bought the rest of the things we needed in Kano Market, including a blanket. I remember I bought a blanket as well. Mm. But, okay, so the first hitchhike step was from Kano in northern Nigeria to Agadez in Niger. Niger is on the southern edge of Agadez is on the southern edge of the Sahara. It's called the Sub-Saharan Belt. And so now we're in a town with big, like city walls, made of mud, sand, and you go within it. And another piece of information we'd had all the year was where other volunteers were working, so that if you turned up and you needed a bed, you could say, hey, I'm a volunteer, can we sleep on your floor? And in Agadez we went to the school teacher. It was school holidays, it was December, and said, can we stay the night with you? And he said, well, you can do more than that. It's Christmas Eve. This is a Christian school. You can come if you wish to the Christmas Eve service, and then we will we're sharing food for Christmas, and then of course you can sleep here. That's fine. So 3 lovely things happened. We went to the Christmas service at the church. Then the ladies had made lots of cakes, and we were told you have to eat 1 piece of Christmas cake for every month of the year. And so at least 12 pieces of cake to bring you good fortune through the year. So we had lots of cake. And by that time it was dark. And it's very dark in those parts at night, and lots of stars. And Don and Diana went off for a walk together after the party. And they came back and they said, we've got engaged.
Wow. I mean, it must have been romantic under the stars.
Exactly. So they got engaged on Christmas Eve, 1970, under the stars in Agadez. And when we'd said our goodbyes to the good school teacher and his colleagues, we followed our instructions and we went to the Lorry Park. If you want to travel, there's no road really to stand at the side and hitchhike like that. You have to go to arrange a ride. So we went to arrange our first ride, and this was on a lorry that was carrying tea. Great big square cases, bags, strong bags full of tea. And they put the tea up on the lorry, and then they helped us on top of the tea. And we stowed within the load our bags and blankets and our little bags of possessions. That's how you travel. What we hadn't realised was that lorry was travelling through the night. And it gets very, very cold in the night. And we had to hold on to the load so that we didn't fall off the lorry. Yes. And there was no way we could reach down into the load to find the warm things. And so we just sat on the lorry and got colder and cold. I've never been so cold in my life. I just had a little cotton dress because that's all you needed. Something like you've been wearing in the day. Perhaps a bit longer.
You can't see that.
You can't see. And so very, very cold. But what I remember is the sun coming up over the sand and just gradually getting warmer and warmer and warmer. I'm thinking, yes, okay, that's one night I can do this.
So things will turn to ice. You just
No,
get cold.
it just gets cold. I don't know what the temperature is, but after the Saharan daytime it certainly feels cold. And the lorry's moving, so you get the wind chill on top of the lorry. So the next lorry we got, the main one, was a sheep lorry. On this lorry were 100 sheep and 2 goats. And we were 2 young men and 2 young women. And just for once it was good to be a woman, because the women went in the cab with the driver and his mate, and the men went on top with the sheep and with some more men who were looking after the sheep. And we didn't travel at night because the sheep couldn't travel at night. So each day for about 5 days, we travelled during the day further and further into the Sahara. No roads, absolutely no roads. There are roads now, but there weren't then.
So the lorries are travelling
on packed sand. And in some ways you can see where other lorries have been, but the wind's blown, and you have to know, in that expanse, you have to know where you're going.
Oh, true. You don't want to get stuck in quicksand, for example.
Well, or just soft sand. They had big, almost like ladders that they could push under the back wheels, under the drive wheels of the lorry if it got stuck. But you don't want to do that with 100 sheep on board. And so they had to be good drivers and know where they were going. Now, take you back to the oranges and the other nourishment. Diana had prepared in the hospital some 5-litre plastic containers that we each had 2 for water, and she'd made sure that they hadn't had nasty chemicals in, and it was all nice clean water. So we started off with 2 of those each, but of course they weren't going to last 5 days. And on the sides of the lorry were a lot of goat skins, which had been cured and filled with water. And if you think about it, the water just gradually seeped through the skin a little bit during the day and evaporated. And so it kept the water inside the skin cool. So although you might not fancy drinking water out of a goat skin, it was actually quite cool and quite refreshing, and anything was refreshing by that time. Now those oranges, big bags, we had a big bag each, the string bags. So we started to eat the oranges. Dry. Try another one. Dry.
Oh,
in each of those huge bags, there were about 2 oranges with juice in.
Oh no.
And so we learned to chew and chew on the dry oranges to help, create some nourishment in our mouths. And ever since, whenever I've opened an orange and it's been dry, it's taken me straight back to that lorry and chewing on dry oranges. So the oranges were not a big success.
I thought the skins would retain at least some moisture in there.
No, sometimes they've been standing around too long and they've gone dry. And perhaps they saw these Europeans coming and thought, yes, we can sell it to those. They're not coming back, we won't see them again. Anyway, dry oranges, 1 or 2 good ones, but that was all. When we found a good one, then we'd share it around. And part of the deal with the drivers was that they would provide food at night. And so at night we had the flat bread that is easily made. There's some they made on the way, but some travelled with us. And we had goat meat. Remember those 2 goats? We started the journey with 100 sheep and 2 goats. We finished the journey, actually 3 of the sheep died, but certainly the goats were there for meals. And so we had goat meat and bread each night. And we slept in our sleeping bags, in the plastic bags, under the stars, and it was magical. And one night, I got snuggled right down in my bag, and we could hear singing, sort of chanting. And the 2 young men got up and put some warm clothes on and went to investigate. And they were Tuareg herdsmen who travel the Sahara with their big cattle, and they had set up camp nearby, and they were singing and sharing sweet tea, and they welcomed the young men, and they had a little evening with the Tuareg drovers. But I missed that because I was too far down in my bag. But I remember hearing the singing. And so day after day of nothing. Mm. And then one day, sort of over there, we could see something appearing. And when we got near, we realised it was a place where there was water. Mm. There was water deep under the sand that someone had constructed a pumping mechanism. And so there were like the big old-fashioned pumps that you can move with a handle and get the water out, and long troughs for animals to drink and to wash and to do what you pleased. Mm. And so the sheep at last had some water, because they'd been a few days without
water. Yes.
And we were shown one of the troughs where we could wash, because the water was for drinking on the lorry. You know, you didn't wash with it. And we just got in with all our clothes on, and we washed ourselves and our clothes, and we got out and we were dry in 10 minutes. Yeah. But it was so good. Dry. Yes, it felt so good to be clean. Yeah. And that was about halfway, so we had a wash halfway across the Sahara. And when we got to southern Algeria, the landscape changed, and there were like big stony mountains. It's the foothills of the Atlas Mountains coming in, and it felt very different. And we came down into a town called Tamanrasset, which is in southern Algeria, and it has an airfield, and it still is a tourist town. So we went into Tamanrasset, and there were streets and markets and American tourists talking about what they bought in the market, and it was so strange. After a week,
peaceful place.
After day after day, just us and the sheep, and the drivers, who were very courteous, they were very good to us, and all this bustle and loudness. It was very uncomfortable. And I had a job to go back to in England, and so I got on the plane at Tamanrasset to Algiers, and then the plane home to England, and that was New Year's Day that I flew home to England. So we'd gone from Christmas Eve, when Don and Diana got married, to New Year's Day flying home in England. That's how I know it took about a week to get across. And it was a big adventure. It was
Sounds
good.
like it. Wow.
Yeah. But the others, they carried on. They went on another lorry. They went on lorries through to Algiers, but I hadn't got time to do that. Yeah. So that's my story.
Oh my goodness.
Are there any questions?
Well, yes. I mean, would you go back again and do the same trip, or with somebody else?
You can't do it now. There are roads and everything's changed.
True. A lot of things have changed.
You see documentaries on the television of people going into uncharted places. Though obviously our driver had a chart in his head.
You still keep in contact with anyone on the trip?
No, I don't know any of them. I went to Don and Diana's wedding, and no, I don't know where any of them are. That's very sad to say, 50 years later. So if any of you are watching, it's down here,
goodness,
remember the oranges? Yeah.
Would you have taken any photos or document anything?
No, I have no photos of the trip. No.
50 years ago, I mean, someone would have had a camera, but no.
Yeah. So that was it.
My goodness. So you had oranges for nourishment, goat meat,
and bread,
and
water. We had enough water. We were careful with the water. We had enough.
Yes.
But I don't remember feeling hungry. You know, if I set out tomorrow on a journey and I
Yeah.
just had oranges and water and I knew I'd have meat and bread in the night, I'd be worried.
Yeah.
Oh, I might get hungry.
Yes.
No, not really.
Well, you were younger.
Yeah, yeah, you were hungry when you're younger.
And you're body conscious when you're young. So it's like a... Okay.
It's a diet.
I'm doing this for myself.
Yeah, no, it was a wonderful end to a very strange year. Yeah.
You didn't ever go back to
Nigeria? No. No. I've been to Kenya and to South Africa, but not Nigeria. It wasn't an easy place to work, even if you took away the fact that they just finished a civil war and there'd been people dead in the streets. Even if you took that away, it wasn't an easy place to work. It was very, very corrupt, and I'm afraid it still is.
Had you already met David?
No,
this
we
was
met him when we came back.
Way before any of
Right, the end of the end of the story is that while I was in Nigeria, I contracted malaria. I didn't know I'd got malaria at the time. I just, you kept getting strange fevers, and so I knew I'd had a strange fever. And I came back. It's too long a story to tell, but I met the man who's now my husband later that year. So I met him in May, about 2 days ago. 2 days and 50 years ago. And in the English summer of that year, I was working in a school on the south coast of England, a summer school for overseas students, and I got very, very sick. And Dave was my boyfriend at that time, and he came to look after me. And every afternoon I got a really high fever. I don't know in centigrade, but it was 104 Fahrenheit. And one afternoon when I was delirious, he asked me to marry him. And I said, yes. And so I always say I agreed to marry Dave when I was delirious. And that was a souvenir of Nigeria, really. But I got better. They looked after me well.
How long were you with him before he popped the question?
About 3 months. We knew.
Wow,
we knew.
he just knew.
We knew. Yes, we knew. Yeah.
So you initiated the the conversation, or
No,
he did?
No, I was lying in bed. And he told me the story that...
No, but how, when you met?
We met.
Who initiated
We met at a
the
dance.
interaction?
Oh, we met at a dance.
Of course.
Of
we
course.
danced.
We danced.
That's how it starts.
Yes.
I didn't know you danced.
We don't really. It was just by chance. He's a hopeless dancer, totally hopeless.
That's
And I
where
wasn't
you
much
meet.
better. You cling for support. But we're not going there. Yeah, no, we're not going there. But I can tell you about the getting engaged, because there I was trying to work at the school and being really sick in the afternoon.
Yes.
And he was coming along to meet me, to see me. And he wanted to ask me to marry him. And he said he sat on the beach that was all pebbles as far as you can see. And he threw the pebbles in the sea to saying, she loves me not, she loves me. But there were an infinite number of pebbles.
Oh, yes.
So he could choose when to stop throwing.
True.
And then when he felt brave, he went and asked me to marry him.
I like it.
Yeah, and that's the end of the story. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for watching our video. And if you made it through to the end, I hope and you'll come back and do another video with us. I'll give you a heads up on my social media if she does. Until then, my gorgeous viewers, thank you for watching. Mwah. Bye.
Bye.